in February of 2021. And the main goal of the committee, I guess after the recording, something happened and I cannot change my slides. Let me stop sharing and I'll share one more time. Okay, I hope now I can do it. No, it seems not. Okay, so what we have is we had main goal also to update the gender equality plan and extend it, and we had formed some subcommittees to work in smaller groups about standardized indicators, about the questionnaire and administrative forms, about forming a protocol for complaint resolution, the recruitment and career development, raising awareness, and the website and dissemination, and improving work-life balance. So what we have done is that summer we also sent out a questionnaire to fourth personnel to collect data. We have also collected data from central administration. So we are now finishing up a quantification of gender equality profile of fourth per institute and personnel category. We have prepared the protocol for sexual harassment complaint management that can be extended to any discrimination complaint management. And we are preparing an updated gender equality and now anti-discrimination also plan. And we have worked, and this one is the among the events that we are preparing in collaboration with other academic institutions. Two milestones for the GEC of fourth is the fact that we took the initiative to to bring together 13 research centers in Greece and to form a network of the research centers in comparison with the network that existed for the Greek universities. And we have undertaken the coordination for the first 2 years. And also the second milestone that was that this network, in collaboration with the Ministry of Development and Innovation and the Ministry also of Work, we were able to prepare a draft that, as it was established, it was included in the Greek legislature in February of 2023 and established the presence and the role of the gender equality committees in all research centers and institutes in Greece. Now, with the new name and the extended role, we are a committee for gender equality and anti-discrimination. We have formed in relevance and correspondence to the work packages and the work committees of fourth GEC-aD. We have formed also different work committees, and we had actually our recent very first hybrid meeting in last Friday to discuss the immediate actions on these different aspects of the gender equality and anti-discrimination. I'll finish up saying that we are trying definitely to have and to create a systematic quantitative gender equality index. We will try to adapt it, or at least to make standardized collection of data inside and across research organizations and various disciplines, so we can actually have data to analyze the current situation in various aspects in the Greek research centers. What we have seen is that there is definitely this glass ceiling effect. There is a strong imbalance between the percentage of women up to postdoctoral positions and that of researchers and lab heads. We have in most of the research centers in Greece, we never had a woman president, very few women in institute director position. Also, we have work-life imbalances in the research environment that do not favor motherhood and parenthood in general, especially during PhD thesis and postdoctoral research, and there is still a discriminatory culture towards women and minorities in research. The current situation at Forth that we collected, you can actually see here for the period from 2018 to 2021, we collected from a recent evaluation of the research institutes in Greece. And you can see here that the collaborating 5 researchers and collaborating faculty, they form about 13 to 15%. We have 23% administrative and technical personnel. About 15 to 16% is the postdocs, postdoctoral community on contract, and 35% is the community of graduate students, masters or PhD students at Forth. Our gender index, at least the general one, is that we have 60% men and 40% women in all these categories. So this is the total one. But because we are increasing the fact that we keep it, it means that we still have and hire a lot of women, but as we said earlier, we have the glass ceiling effect because this ratio is 80 to 20% in the case of researchers. The same here for collaborating university faculty members, while when we talk about postdoctoral researchers, this is about balance, this 55% to 45%, and in PhD students in 60 to 40. So these are the communities that give, along with the technical and administrative personnel, give the overall balance, but definitely we need to do something and counteract versus the glass ceiling effect. I will finish by saying that there is a window of opportunity for this crisis that we have. We have energy crisis, we have had the COVID crisis, to change the way we address imbalances and inequality if we want our society to become more resilient and cohesive in the future. Based on our research and what we are trying also at Forth and the GEC-aD network of research centers is to invest in, to suggest and push towards investment in gender disaggregated data collection. And you're going to hear about this in the next talks. And also to have gender-sensitive metrics for the evaluation of academic performance that takes into consideration the fact that there is an additional care burden for female researchers, especially in their early career stages, and also factor sex and gender into certain grant requirements so that we can multiply the positive outcomes for gender equality in the grant, in successful proposals with the gender and sex component, which you are going to hear today. And by that, I finished up. And again, I thank all the speakers and all of you for being here today.
Thank you very much. Is there any question okay, thank you very much. So we proceed to the next presentation. We have with us Professor Alexis Stamatakis. He is an ERA chair in the Institute of Computer Science here at Forth in the field of biodiversity informatics. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So let me share the screen for him. This is there, you see it? This is it.
Yeah.
Okay, so share screen. All yours.
Thank you very much. We have to go to presentation mode. Maybe you can do it because it's.
It is a PDF.
Oh, well, on Linux it works anyway. Okay,
Yes.
so I can do it. I can do it like that as well. Yeah, right. So thank you very much. And basically, I'm just going to continue where Maria stopped talking. So this is, I think, the natural extension of, of what Maria showed us, or like based on the data she's shown us. So I'm really going to try and argue why Greece needs a dedicated program for female researchers and professors. So how do I go forward?
Page down, probably.
No.
F11.
I'm not sure, but try that.
Sorry. Where? Here. Okay. Wait. Page down. Page down. Here.
Okay.
Okay. So
Just need
page
to
down.
Hit
Yes.
it with force. Right. So first of all, maybe I should outline why I'm giving this talk. So one goal of this ERA Chair program that Greece is now a part of as well, or is eligible to apply to as well, is that the ERA Chairs, besides doing research, should also encourage institutional reforms in the national research system in widening countries. So the first question, so this started basically, the first ERA Chairs have arrived in Greece this year, started in 2023. So first question one might ask is why all 7 Greek ERA Chairs are actually male. So this is something to think about, especially for the next round of applications. And something that just happened this morning at the University of Crete, just at the faculty appointment committee, in biology, by the way, that all committee members were male and over 45. So this was also rather weird, I must say. So those are just some random observations. Further, I think the personal situation is important in this context. So we are a family of 5. My kids are aged 4, 7, and 9, and my wife is also working at least at 120%, which means that you have all the issues. When something goes wrong with the kids, who's got the more important meeting, who's got the more important business trip, and things that you really need to balance. Another thing, so I'm no expert by any means, but another thing I worked on in the past is that I initiated a family friendliness committee at my now second home institute back in Heidelberg. Right, and so where do the problems start? So this is actually a picture of my son's, my son's homework, first grade public primary school, and it says that mom is cleaning the carpet. So this seems to be culturally anchored in a very deep way here in Greece, and I think this is something that we do need to change. Then, unfortunately, Maria stole that slide from me, or the other way around. So she already told you about the gender equality index in Greece, that we're lost in the EU. So we'll just skip over that. And then we've been collecting, to gather arguments as to why we need a female researchers and professors program. We did collect some statistics. So I just took the 10 most highly ranked universities according to the Times Higher Education Index, and found that, 30% of rectors are female, which is not too bad. I think in Germany it's like 27%. But, and this is, if we think about academic management positions, only 17% of the rectorate members of those 10 universities are female. When we look at some research centers, so just pick out some, we see that all chairmen are male, and we only have like 18% female members in the respective boards of directors. So this is basically some, data that underlines what Maria said previously. One quote from the Gender Equality Plan of the University of Crete is that, Greece is ranked 45th out of 170 countries that participated in research and research on gender equality, and is last in the group of developed countries. And also, as Maria said, so the worst performance is really noted in employment and financial inclusion. So if we look at academia and what has been done in the past, so numerous countries that are higher ranked in the Gender Equality Index have established dedicated female professors and researchers programs, such as the Professorinnenprogramm in Germany, which I personally happen to know best. And so despite this very dramatic or bad situation in Greece, no such program or related actions really exist to actively increase the number of female researchers and professors. So the kind of so far still vague idea is to establish a dedicated female professors and researchers program in Greece. Maybe it would be realistic to obtain 10 additional permanent positions only for female researchers per year, beyond those that are already being planned by the state. And one idea on how to distribute those 10 additional permanent positions would be that institutes or institutions compete for obtaining those positions by submitting dedicated gender action plans. So this is how this program was approximately set up in Germany. It's not really clear yet how we want to do that. Just some action plan examples by discipline. So in computer science, we've always had the problem that we had too few female students. So in Germany, it has stayed constant at like maybe 15 to 20% over the past 30 years. Here, a dedicated gender action plan would start at schools. In biology, and this was very clear now also by the data that Maria showed, we have this problem of fixing the leaky pipeline, that we have good gender balance at the student level. It gets worse at the PhD level. Then at the postdoc level, it gets worse. And then we still have this kind of, male dominance, even in biology, where we have like a kind of balanced starting point. Just an example I picked out from a kind of, best practices guide in Germany for this program is in liberal arts. So here, one gender action would be to improve the monitoring for the plethora of alternative and highly diverse career paths we have. So the strategy, I mean, this was just like, a loose idea or just like an idea that you throw at your female academic friends. And then we also involved, I think right from the beginning, actually, the fourth Gender Equality Committee. So Maria is very aware of this process. And what we did so far is that we had a first meeting and we drafted a proposal to policymakers, which is kind of ready. And now we hope to have a second meeting soon to discuss some open issues to kind of make this a more well thought through proposal. So the idea is just through the network that Maria mentioned that we involve the gender equality committees of all research centers via this existing network, and also the respective gender equality committees from the universities, such that we have like, wide, broad national support. So some open issues. We need to think about diversity beyond gender, which is currently not really visible anywhere in Greece, at least based on what I've seen so far. So I'll just quote an anonymous colleague who said that I don't know any Greek academic who openly states being homosexual. So this is just a quote, a personal quote. I don't know if it's true, but there is this very low visibility of diversity issues. If you look at, institute web pages, university web pages, etc. Other open issues that we're just like in the process of discussing is whether we should only focus on STEM or on all areas with this professor's program. We do probably need more data to describe the situation in Greece and make our argument stronger. And then there's also the question, how many issues do we really raise? Do we talk about women in academia in general, so just opting for additional positions on top of the normal planned ones? Or do we also want to focus on women in academic management, where it's clear that they are underrepresented, and also diversity beyond gender? So I think personally that this needs to be kind of a step-by-step process, one after the other, but this is to be discussed. Another thing that is currently unclear is the exact procedure for reviewing applications by institutions to participate at this dedicated female researchers and professors program, and how to set up the committees, et cetera, and of course, this is just like a arbitrary number, why 10 positions per year and not 12 or 15. We also need to think a little bit more about the alternatives for defining the number of dedicated positions we would like to allocate to this program. So we need to find something that is both realistic and ambitious, I guess. And yeah, with that, that's already the end of my talk. So this is our village in the Mesara. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Alexis. There is a 5 minutes slot for questions. Yes, Dimos.
I was wondering, Chairman.
Do you hear?
You can also
Everybody?
repeat the question.
No,
maybe.
Okay.
yeah.
I was
Come
wondering,
closer, please.
You mentioned that in Germany you have dedicated positions for female applicants. And female applicants only, is that correct?
No, in Germany,
Please repeat the
program.
question so that.
Hey,
we
Magda,
can-
sure.
could you repeat the
Yeah.
question? Yes, as Kiki says,
So,
yes,
so
please.
I mentioned that in Germany we have this kind of similar program for female professors, but it's not the way I described in the way I described our idea here. So it's a little bit more complicated, and this why.
So the idea here would be to have positions for female applicants. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you anticipate any legal challenges?
That's also a question that Dimitris asked, by the way. It's still on our list. I don't know. I mean, you could always argue that the situation is so unbalanced that it would be legitimate to do this, but I'm by no means a legal expert. So in Germany, this was not really a problem. So the funding scheme worked a little bit differently, but I will probably not go into the details because this is too much linked to like German state employee law and details that are different between different federal states. So it's kind of it's a mess. But so there, in principle, the idea was that you get like 5 years. If you hire a female professor, you like get 5 years of a professor's salary or professor's position on top, kind of for free from the state, right? So that was a little bit different. So here we're really talking about dedicated separate positions on top of the normal budget, just with this idea in mind that, you know, we are last in the gender equality index, so we need to do more to catch up, essentially.
Any other question? So thank you very much. Maria?
Yeah, Magda, there's Kiki also. I would like to probably follow up
yes.
on what Alexis Stamatakis said. All these are issues that we need to take into consideration, but definitely what I also presented is to put a factor on proposals, like as we do, let's say for grants that are from younger professors, early career professors compared to others. So here it should be like that, especially and this is something also Maria Stratigaki and the gender issues researchers have commented on how to make also to have academic performance indicators that take into consideration the role of women in care, in family care, and also in pregnancy, and they are more gender sensitive than they are right now. So these are some aspects that could be used in order to make the academic performance to have a balance there and have more also women to propose, to have proposals, make proposals, and participate in research. So there are different ways to make this legitimate, as it was the question.
Thank you, Maria. Kiki?
Hello, thank you for this. It's an interesting idea, an interesting proposal. Just I wanted to ask, what is the percentage, for example, in Germany that this program is running? What is the percentage of these positions comparing to the normal, the ordinary, if I may say, positions that an institute gets per year? Do you know?
Yeah,
Because I'm asking because in Greece is a bit, I mean, it's not regular how positions are opened or are given in an institution. For example, in our institute, for the last 5 years, we had just 2 openings of ordinary, normal positions. So, I mean, what is the balance? What should be a reasonable balance?
I would have to look it up. I mean, the program in Germany has been running since I think 2008 or 2009, and so far I think about 850 to 900 positions have been filled through this program, right? And they also on the program webpage they also have like some graphs that show the proportion of female professors really increasing. So it's hard to tell if it's just this program because of course Germany's a big country, there are many professor positions, but there is like a clear trend for improvement. Although I think even still Germany, I mean, just culturally I know the country best, but is not necessarily the ideal role model for progress in that regard, right? So there are other countries that are far more advanced. I mean, I just picked up this example because I kind of understand the system well.
But do you have an estimation of how many positions in general were opened during these 15 years since 2008? No,
I don't even know if those numbers. Most professor positions are actually not opened by the state, but by the respective federal state. So if you want me to, I can try to look this up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we go on. I would like to welcome Dr. Trine Rogg-Korsvik. She comes from Norway, from the Kilden Research Center that focuses on gender issues. And she was one of our instructors at the Gendering workshop last month, a couple of months ago. And we are happy to have her with us today. Please, Trine.
Thank you, Magda. I'm very happy that you invited me. It's an honor. And it was very interesting also to listen to the other presentations now. Because now I'm going to talk about something slightly different, whereas you were talking more about the gender equality and gender balance in the research institutions. This talk will be more about the gender dimension in the content of research. That was also what we were working with in the Gender In sessions. How do you see my screen?
It's Windows.
It's
can you make see? Yes.
Now,
perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, nice. So I will just start to say something about our institution, Kilden Gender Research, and then we'll talk something about the requirements of Horizon Europe to include the gender dimension in the content of research. And then I will say just a few words about some concepts related to sex gender dimension in the research content. So I will try to talk 10 minutes. Kilden, we are a national knowledge center for gender perspectives and gender balance in research. So that means we're not like you, a research center. We are an independent part of the Norwegian Research Council. And we are more, our mandate, it's more to disseminate research with gender perspectives. So we are doing this in a variety of channels. We have this news magazine, you can see on the front page here. You see this is more like popularized articles about research with the gender perspective. You see it's about technology, artificial intelligence, a lot of different topics. And we also make reports. We have lectures, seminars, etc. And we also even have a podcast. And well, we are doing a lot of different ways of disseminating research. So it's also to a more broad audience than only to the research community. That's maybe something very different from a normal research center. And so we also have a newsletter that we are always asking people to sign up for. So if you like, you can write your email address in the chat. So at Kilden, we are, as I said, we are working with disseminating research in through a lot of different channels. And like here, we have I will show you some of our publications that you can check out on our webpage, and those who are in English, of course, because Norwegian is our the language we use the most. So this couple of years ago, we made this research review over Norwegian research about artificial intelligence with a gender perspective. So it's there were not so much research to be found, to be honest, but that was like a scoping review to map all the research that were done by Norwegian research. That means that at least one of the researcher was affiliated to a Norwegian institution. So then we looked about research about the influence or the influence on gender equality of artificial intelligence within, for instance, public and private services, the employment or working life, and also with the digital social platforms and entertainment, video games, and so on. So we had a quite broad definition of artificial intelligence. And of course, so we also had about automations in the labor market. So the thing showed that there were not actually very much research, but of course, like every kind of social science, of course, this has also consequences for gender, and especially in the working life, who loses their job due to automation, etc. But you can check it out. This is more like the summary, but you can go into the research by yourself if you go into this review. And on the other hand, on the other side, I mean, on the right hand, you have this policy brief that we also made about gender equality and the green transition of the labor markets, which is also a kind of a new topic. I can also say that after we did this review of the connection between artificial intelligence and digitalization and gender equality, there have been done a lot more research afterwards. So we have been like pioneering in putting these kind of issues on the agenda. And in this, and where we talk about the green transition of the labor market and gender equality, we ask questions like, how can we assure that the green transition does not create new winners and losers in the labor market? Will the green transition create more gender segregated labor market, or can it actually provide opportunities to reduce gender segregation? And also very relevant to you, I think, it's how is the underrepresentation of women in STEM significant for the green transition, because a lot of these works are, of course, made within the area of STEM. We also have this now starting to be a classic, the handbook, What is the Gender Dimension in Research, which we actually made back in 2018. And this was more based on the Horizon 2020 program and the UN Sustainability Development Goals. And this handbook is also on our website in English and Spanish even. And it's also about the content of research. And so we are like providing examples, case studies from a variety of multidisciplinary disciplines like agriculture, bioeconomy, energy, transport, climate and environment, etc. But it's more like to show with good examples to inspire people, not to say this is how you have to do it, because there are, of course, a lot of different ways to deal with the gender perspective or sex and gender perspective in research. And in this booklet, we also have kind of we have like a guide in the end of the book where we look at the research process, you know, from the starting to work with the application, what kind of question can you pose yourself? Just so it's more like for an inspiration. And of course now in Horizon Europe, the demand to include the gender dimension is stronger than before. It's actually, like you see here, it is the integration of the gender dimension into research and innovation content is a requirement by default across the whole program. So, and that means that it's about defined as sex and gender analysis. I suppose that is also the reason why you have invited me here to say this, and so you can study the clusters and the gender in webinars we have had before if you are interested. But this is of course an important motivation for starting to work with gender perspectives in research. So when we talk about the gender dimension in research content, you have of course, you know, the well-known concept of sex and gender, and that is important to take into account, where sex is about the biological, anatomical sex differences between females and males, chromosomes, genes, etc. And gender is the socially constructed norms, values, and expectations related to men or women, and what is regarded as feminine or masculine. And that is, of course, not the same in every culture, but varies across time and cultures. So, and it's also important it's hard to, you know, see this is sex and this is gender, because the distinctions can be some kind of blurry, that we don't always know what is like biological or what is more like differences through socialization, etc. Like you are in the STEM field, you also know that probably that even the brains, they are changing, adapting to the surroundings. So it's, if you are like treated in a different way, it's also the brain changes. It's not like just there before any kind of influence from the culture around. So if you want to, I will be quite brief because we don't have the time. Afterwards, there will be some good examples from research. But there are some concepts that is important to know about when, for instance, writing an application. To know this concept, what is the, for instance, gender blind research, which is very, very normal. And that does not take gender dimension into account, and that assumes that the research is gender neutral or that gender differences are not relevant. This is, of course, a quite, and this is can always also be, it's not like the gender dimension is always relevant, but at least sometimes it might be without the researcher posing these questions. Whereas the gender bias, it's something else, that it's more about reproducing stereotypes in research or ignores the sex or gender differences. A good example of this is, of course, within medicine, that within the research on cardiovascular diseases, it was a very long time assumed that male and female hearts were alike. But whereas now the research shows that there are quite big sex differences, so that a lot of women have actually been underdiagnosed due to this gender bias. So that's, or sex bias. So that is something important to bear in mind. Sex or gender as a variable is also very good to have in all research and surveys, but whereas, okay, sorry. Did you ask me a question? No. But to have like sex or gender as a variable, it is of course the basic to start with, but it does not, of course, mean that this will be like a part of the research project. But it is really important to have this kind of data to form the basis of further gender analysis. Gender research is, of course, a sort of interdisciplinary field by its own, which is more developed within the humanities and social sciences. And they have like a gender as their starting point for analysis and are often very concerned about how gender relations is connected to power, etc. Whereas what we are more like talking about, the sex and gender analysis, it means that the sex or gender and gender is part of the research design and systematically controlled for throughout the research project without necessarily being the main focus of the analysis. So I think it's important also to find that this is also found in most disciplines, but it does not mean that you always have to like look for gender or sex differences. Even that, you know, to always focus on the differences between women and men, because that can really also sometimes, I think, reproduce gender stereotypes in some way when you know, force some kind of gender perspectives into the research and just want to look at the difference, and men are like this and women are like that, etc. When actually there are very small percentages, or maybe some other factors were important, such as age or income level, if you live on the countryside or in the city, you know, then the financial status, etc. So it's not always that the gender is the main factor for analysis. But now I think I have been talking enough, so I will give the floor to the next speaker. But if you like, if you have some questions, I can ask. I'll try to answer. Pause. Now I don't hear you, Magda.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Όχι, γιατί είναι το μικρόφωνο. Do you hear me now?
Yes. I hear you.
Μάγδα, σας ακούμε.
Μάλλον δεν μας ακούνε. Maybe they cannot hear us.
I can hear you very well.
Thank you very much. We have a, sorry for this. You're okay now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry for this. It was a problem with the video conferencing microphone. So I don't know if there are any questions. I think there is not. There are not.
I do have a question.
Yes, please.
So maybe a pretty naive question. You know, since my background is computer science, I would tend to think that most of the research we're doing in my group is kind of completely gender neutral. So I was just curious if you could give me some, examples about.
Now you disappeared. Now I don't hear you anymore. The sound disappeared. It is funny that you are working in computer science and you have these difficulties with that.
Test again.
This is Matthew. Yeah.
You can hear us now.
Now I can hear you.
Excellent.
Okay, so I'll try to repeat the question once. I'm kind of doing computer science, and I tend to think that most of the research we're doing is gender neutral. Could you give me some examples of like non-gender neutral research in computer science? Like what would those projects look like? Because that's kind of a hard time.
Maybe when they are more like focused on for instance, the end users, that you're developing products for being used by the end users, then they will probably have some social impacts. I don't know. I'm not a computer scientist, so I think the idea is also that it's important that it's not like one way, that it's probably there are a lot of very technical things that are actually where gender is not relevant at all. But when, of course, you are talking about the end users and how this the results will have impact in the society, then it's of course most things that are going to be used by humans have some kind of influence on the social relations, and then also gender relations, of course. For instance, like we have in this research review I told you about, there is a lot of actually how for instance the work life is influenced by the new technologies, and which is not only about women and men, but also other other social consequences. That's the only thing I can say. But it's of course up to you to do the research and find out if gender is important or not.
I think you will have a case study, an example, with our next speakers. So there will be an answer, I think, to your question. I would like, before I introduce Vangelis, Catherine and Vangelis, ladies first, I would like to add here that in November, in collaboration with LAGIP, the Association of Greek Academic Women, together with Trine and her institution, we will organize a workshop here locally in Forth. We will try to invite all the academic institutions of our region, Crete. This means the universities, the Technical University in Chania, as well as all the research, local research organizations of the region. And we will try to make this workshop that we had the experience a couple of months ago. We will deliver it in Crete. We plan it for early November. So have it in mind. If you are interested, you could follow and you will be invited to follow. So I will introduce now our colleagues, Catherine Harrison. She is an associate professor in Linköping, University of Sweden on gender studies, and Professor Vangelis Angelakis. He is also a colleague and co-student in our early years in the University of Crete. He is a professor at the same university in Sweden, dealing with communications and transport systems, and they will introduce us a case study, an interdisciplinary collaboration on a project with the title Sustainability Means Inclusivity, Engaging Citizens in Early Stage Smart City Development. So the floor is yours.
So, thank you, Magda, for such a lovely warm welcome. And thank you, Alexis, for the question, and Trina for the background, because it's kind of the perfect setup, really, for our talk, I think. So, as Magda mentioned, my name is Catherine Harrison. My background's in gender studies, but the kind of gender studies I do is not so much involved in counting numbers of men and women, but more in developing critical perspectives on the design, development, and deployment of technical innovation. So I'm here today to present to you as a case study a project that we've just wrapped up. And I've brought with me my colleague in the project, Bengalis, to kind of talk about how we develop that interdisciplinary collaboration and how one might integrate gender perspectives into more technical or engineering oriented work. And as a caveat, I should say at the beginning that although I'm an associate professor in gender studies, a lot of the work I do is tuned into not just gender, but also other identifying characteristics that might impact one's access to or ease of use with technology. So we might think here about age, ability, level of education, for example. So without further ado, I'll try and change the slides.
Yeah. So,
Yes, please.
yes. So I will start rolling the ball of how this project came to be, and it actually has a little bit of ancient history attached to it. So it's an ancient history because it started before 2013. And at least some of the people in this room might have some memory of the project RERUM. So RERUM was an FP7, ancient history. Now it would be Research and Innovation Action. At the time, it was a STREP project, which was one of the 3 flagship projects on smart cities of ICT. So it was aimed to deliver reliable, resilient, and secure IoTs for the smart city context and specifically applications there. What we had, we were supposed to deliver 2 IoT-enabled pilot trials in the cities of Heraklion, more grounded here locally at Forth, and in the city of Tarragona. And there was supposed to be some cross-evaluation between them in the context of smart homes and smart transportation. And as Magda noted, I come from the Communication and Transport Division of the Department of Science and Technology in Linköping University. So we took the flag of the pilot for smart transportation. So we were supposed to design a participatory sensing app, which would deliver at the time that Google Maps did not give any traffic information for quite a lot of European cities, the traffic situation in Heraklion, and then in Tarragona by second round. So what happened is we ended up with something that was a prototype of an app and a web prototype, and we were expecting people would participate. Participatory sensing means that you have handed out kits of some sort, sensing kits of some sort to citizens who do the sensing for you, therefore you don't need to deploy infrastructure. So keyword was that we would do it over an app, and we were expecting some penetration. In the end, to have the pilot running and not go back crying, we ended up plugging 50 phones on buses because we couldn't recruit citizens to download the app and run it. It was a time where actually megabytes were also a bit expensive, so there was a bit of an issue there. But in reality, we were a bunch of engineers designing an app that citizens were supposed to use, and we had no idea why they would use it or why they should use it, beside the fact that they were doing our bidding. Enter what the first answer you got from a previous speaker was when you are talking about citizens. So it wasn't exactly a failure, but it didn't meet the target we had in mind. It was also a big lesson for us. Fast forward from then, we have, I was assigned to develop an urban IoT testbed in Sweden. in the city of Norrköping, where my department has its facilities. And to the left, you see a map of the city of Norrköping, very un-Heraklion or un-Greek-like, very organized, very fine in terms of squares and blocks. And the street was the one on the right 60 years ago. Today, the street looks a little bit more modern, like that. There is no tram and no black and white, far wider. The street is one of the 4 circular paths of the city, and it connects the north to the south lanes. It's a 1.3 kilometers, which is fairly wide in the northern part, meaning above the river, as you see the picture. Whereas the second part, southern, is a bit narrow. It has a couple of roundabouts that delimit it in the north and the south, 1 square right before the bridge across the river, and 7 sets of traffic lights. Now, in terms of infrastructure, at the north, at the roundabout, is the main police station of the city. There's a parking garage as we enter from the north to the south of the street. There is the campus of Linköping University. Across the river, there is the Visualization Center C, which prides itself to have the biggest dome in Northern Europe, 3D projection dome. We have a couple of schools, more parking garages on the south side, shops, coffee shops, and so on and so on. And there is the fire station and the rescue services on the south. So one would expect that this is a very important through street, and it is. Truth of the matter is, when the fire brigade gets a rescue call, or the rescue services get a rescue call on the north part of the city, they don't use the street. It's impossible to go through during rush hours. Backtracking, so what we were supposed to deliver was an IoT-inspired testbed that would provide situational awareness in terms of traffic through sensing and data fusion, which meant that we would deploy real-time sensing devices, but also harvest however many historical data we could, and deploy models and prediction mechanisms in order to be able to assist the city in one way or another. It was a time, 2019, that digital twins were becoming a bit of a hype. So the promise was that we would deliver a mobility digital twin of the street, which would then lead to a digital twin of the street, which would then lead to a digital twin of the city. What we had as an ambition from the technical side now was that we would be able to openly collect sensing and actuating devices in some sort of a backend middleware, and be able to semantically annotate the data such that we would be able to create open and flexible services which would be composed of the data that was already there or be able to be collected by the infrastructure we deploy, and push computation to the edge, meaning to the boxes that we would deploy in the street, and in order to save resources, but also to maintain privacy and provide services of that kind. The lesson we carried over from Rerum was that we wanted to engage with the users of Kungsgatan towards the solutions design.
So this is where I come in. What Vangelis has talked about in relation to Rerum is kind of epitomizes what might be called the grand challenge for smart cities. So the UN currently predicts that by 2050, 2/3 of the world's population will be living in urban spaces. So the challenge of how these spaces can be designed in an efficient and sustainable way is enormous. And at the moment, the kind of technologies that we talked about here seem to offer the most promising solution. And they involve primarily integrating digital technologies into the urban environment. But speaking from my side of the fence on the social sciences side, there's already been an enormous amount of scholarship generated that suggests that many of these projects ignore the actual sort of daily lived needs of the population who actually are in these spaces. And worst case scenarios, they actually increase existing social divides. So there's a lot there to be tackled, both on the technical and social side. So we started from this premise. If you want to create a sustainable urban environment, it depends as much on creating an inclusive space that acknowledges this diverse group of people who live in the spaces, as much as it does on deploying smart technologies that make things more efficient and more sustainable. And this has a really good reason. As Vangelis saw in the case of Rerum, and has been demonstrated kind of in many projects, if you don't persuade the citizens to adopt these technologies long term, you don't see the benefits of them. And that kind of long-term adoption comes from a good fit between the technology and the actual daily kind of lives of people in the space. So that was our kind of starting point when we put the project together that we're talking about today. So we received 3 years funding from one of the Swedish research councils that specializes in sustainable development, called Formas, to focus our efforts around the test site that Vangelis has just described. And our aim here was to bring both the top-down players, so that's the kind of government representatives, commercial stakeholders, as well as the local residents, into dialogue with the technical developers at the university in what's been called a meet in the middle approach. So in order to do this, we built an interdisciplinary team. So we are just 2 members of the bigger team. And there's myself and a colleague from the Gender Studies Department. She's a human geographer. Vangelis and his research engineer Rasmus, but also colleagues from the Interaction Design Department at our university who specialize in participatory design, as well as a student who came from the urban planning program. So the goal was that we would all work together to kind of somehow integrate all the different needs and perspectives. How did we do this? Well, there was a lot going on. So we did both a science and technology studies inspired ethnographic process. So that meant we spent a lot of time interviewing top-down stakeholders in the municipality. What did they think about smart city technologies? How did they understand this idea of smartification and what it would do for them? And at the same time, we conducted a participatory design process where we invited citizens in very different ways to come and talk to us about how they saw their city in the future, what would they would like, how these sensors could possibly help them to achieve that. And in parallel, we were running technical development of sensor boxes. So this is the part that Vangelis and his colleague were running. In order to make this happen, we worked in kind of cycles of engagement and development. So here you can see Vangelis and I out in 2019, handing out flyers to the local businesses and shopkeep owners, all the way up and down Kungsgatan, talking to them about what we were doing, what their needs were, what they wanted to see in the street, how it could be done differently. And that was the first activity that we did. And after that, we shifted between cycles of engagement, so pilot workshops, cultural probes, a living lab, and then cycles of prototype development, for which we used a lot of different student groups often. And then we'd cycle back into another round of citizen engagement, where we went out, we took our work and presented at kind of public, popular science type events, asking people to kind of come and talk to us about it, giving them an opportunity to ask questions, to like literally poke their fingers at the sensor boxes and say, how does this work? And what does it do? And what's it learning about me? And then this all wrapped up into a kind of closing festival that we had in the middle of last year, where we presented our work more broadly.
Yeah, and pretty much the lesson learned of this set of cycles in our methodology that was presented is that it took us from ideas that taught us things both about the space, but even about how people think and what people need and how people perceive technologies, to tangible innovations or research components that then became innovations that spanned from the boxes to apps that were actually and actively used by people on Kungsgatan at the end of the day.
So all the way through, this was a very interdisciplinary project. We wanted to very much reflect that when we tried to wrap it up at the end. So we organized, rather than a kind of regular conference that you might have at the end of a project, we organized what we called a festival. So we had some components that you might recognize in the form of keynotes, and I've included the titles and the names of the people who did the keynotes here, as much as anything to show you the kind of range of topics that we covered. Everything from kind of experts in the kind of technical side of IoT sensing to more kind of activists and urban planners, as well as those who belong more within critical data studies, who are taking a kind of difficult and provocative perspective on what's actually going on with the data that's being collected. But alongside these kind of more formal events, we also had a lot of workshops. So here you can see a picture from the citizen gardening workshop that we ran, as well as the app workshop. And the idea was to open this festival not just to the academic community, but also to the citizens and the stakeholders in the town, members of the municipality, for example, to try and carry on the dialogue that we've been having. So we made all these efforts to engage everyone, to try and reach out to all the different people who live and work and spend time around the test site. And we did that in order to do this, taking careful account of the diversity of human needs that I started off talking about. So the goal was that we would make the urban space more comfortable and more safe, but also that hopefully more people would actually adopt the thing we were producing, which turned out to be an app. And what we discovered is that it was a great theory, but it was actually really hard to achieve in practice. So as I'm sure Trina would support me on here, diversity work is really difficult to do. And interdisciplinary collaboration like this seems to take a lot of extra time. So I wanted to kind of bring these things, not to kind of make because I wanted to sort of, I guess, sound a reality check. This is what we've been doing, is one example of how you might integrate so-called gender perspectives into technical and engineering work, but it's definitely still a work in progress. If Rerun was kind of an earlier part of the narrative, an earlier chapter, this is definitely just only a middle chapter. And we found a lot of kind of gaps in the work we were doing that indicate areas for further development. So by way of illustrating that, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the street observation that we had our student assistant, Natalie, do for us. So we started the process of running the living labs and inviting people to come and talk to us about their needs and their hopes for Norrköping. And at the same time, we had Natalie do a street observation. So she went and she sat out on Kungsgatan, several different places on the street, watching how people use the street, taking some demographic counts, how many men, how many women, how many children, what kind of age groups are we talking, what kind of ethnicity are we talking about? Norrköping's quite mixed. And to see how this compared to the people we were actually meeting in workshops. And actually we saw a huge disparity between what you could call the real user group on the street and the citizens we managed to engage with. We speculated a lot as a project team about why that might be the case. So that was one of the gaps we came up against, and one that we've carried on working with since. The other gap we noticed was one between the technologies and the lived realities. So we spent some time thinking about what kind of data sensors are meant to collect and how they kind of promise an accurate map of the street and what's going on it. But actually, the interdisciplinary conversations we had suggested there was a great deal more heterogeneity about the planning and spatial formulations of the city than the boxes were actually managing to capture. So there's also, I guess you could say, a technical challenge there still to be addressed. Last but not least, some kind of, I guess, reflections from the actual work process within the project team itself was that this bringing gender expertise into conversation like this takes a long time. There was not just the gap that I've identified between academia and society, but between the different disciplines that we had in the project group. And the conversations we were having took a lot of extra time to build. We also had a lot of kind of challenges, I think, in trying to reconcile the qualitative and quantitative data and methods that we were working with. And we worked a lot with something called learning seminars as a way of trying to exchange this knowledge and information. I like to think that in the project, we all learned a lot, as well as actually conducting some research, but it wasn't always an easy process for sure.
I'm still owed some credits.
Having said that, it's certainly also given us a lot of inspiration going forward.
Yeah, so as a matter of fact, one of the reasons I started with the Rhythm storyline is because it closes one more cycle. Now, the benefit, if you will, of putting Sumin on the table on the project that Catherine has been discussing about was that we have been quite active and we have been presenting quite a lot here and there in a variety of venues. And it seems that the end up that we concluded, which was essentially a preference-based, user preference-based mobility app, was pretty much pinched by the Innovation Office for market research. So now they're literally pushing me to spend time with them and try to see how we can throw it in the market. The conditions for putting innovation into market in the Swedish universities are very favorable towards the researchers, but papers is more comfortable for us. But that means that we did something that has a potential to actually be used by real users, not users in a project that are handpicked and have all the pathogenies that Catherine mentioned. We observe the ones that you invite in the living labs, the ones that you actually manage to reach out So there is a potential in that. On the other hand, what we learned, the way that we learn to work together, and also the approach of meeting in the middle in the sense of smart spaces or smart living, has produced two EU Horizon projects for where Leo participates. One is the Twin Air project where we aim to understand the air quality of indoor space, and what Catherine was mentioning about quantitative, qualitative has been in the core of that. And the other part is, the other project is the Elaborator project, where we are targeting at safe, inclusive, sustainable, and affordable urban mobility, one step further from what we already have done. And to add to that, we got some money from the European Consortium of Innovative Universities for a pilot project on air quality, focusing again on the campus, where again we bring quite a lot of the co-creative aspects that we've learned. And in the last 6 months, we've been bumbling around along in Forth. We have produced a couple of applications between Leo and Forth. One is the Silver Line, and the other one is Green and Cities, where again we put this meet in the middle approach quite centrally in the heart of the projects.
Meanwhile, I will be returning to Sweden this fall to start a new project funded by a major Swedish funder, the Wallenberg Foundation, called Operationalizing Ethics for AI, in which explainability in smart cities will be very much in focus. So I'd like to think our work on smart cities and our interdisciplinary collaborations have many chapters ahead of them. So thank you all for listening, and we're very happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I have to release Alexis.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one question and then I'll head off to pick up the kids. So
Yes, please.
if I may, you mentioned that you had this kind of difference between people on the street and people that actually attended the workshop. So this is a very general problem, you know, like in our little village in the south of the Heraklion prefecture, we're running those kind of, you know, seminar series, public outreach talks, and we're observing exactly the same thing, right? So it's always, what we see is that it's always the educated people of that area that come and attend the talks, even people from Heraklion are coming to listen to those talks, but it's not like, you know, the parents of the kids, like of the kids that are going to school with my sons. So what do you do about that? That's how do you solve that?
I think you need kind of many different methodologies. So we discovered that one of our problems in Norrköping, at least, was language-based. I don't know how applicable that would be here. So that's one of the issues that comes up quite a lot with that. Another is to do with space. So there are some citizens who feel less comfortable entering university spaces, while they may be comfortable spaces for us. So we've had to think a lot more about the different kinds of spaces one holds events in, or whether one invites people to one's own space or goes out to other spaces.
So it's on our village square, right? So it's scientific outreach talks on the kind of little village square. So, but we still don't get the audience that we think that should be coming, right? Yeah. We always get the people who know maybe half of the stuff already that is being presented.
So you're getting the kind of already perhaps overly educated, I guess like middle class, upper middle class.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the gender split like?
It's a good question. 50-50, 60-40 maybe. So that's not really an issue, but we're not, you know, we're not getting the parents from the neighboring village that's 3 minutes away. The events are for free, and their kids could learn something new or see something different, like outside the kind of reality of a little village in the Cretan periphery. So
have you tried asking them what it would take for them to come along to such an event?
Yeah, I should next time. Yeah.
I'm just thinking if they're fellow parents with you, you have the ideal opportunity through school, perhaps. Could you go into class and do a pop science thing in class with the kids?
Yeah, well, we kind of did that in school as well. It was a program from the museum, but it was also specifically announced to the other parents, but they still didn't come. So probably have to.
I'm intrigued, as to what is it, a time question?
No.
because we had all ranges of problems of participation, from the
Yeah.
language barrier that Catherine mentioned to the mistrust
Yes.
issue. So we went up and down the street, and there were people,
But it-
shopkeepers,
Yeah.
saying, okay, you're going to do something for the municipality. No, we're not. We're going to wait. It's not. Well, okay, I don't trust the municipality. Whatever I say or do with you, it's going to be waste of time.
But there was also people that we expected who would be interested, who just didn't see that it was relevant to their lives. So we realized we had to do a lot more translation work in kind of explaining how it would be useful to them, why it would be useful to them, that kind of level of work. Good luck, sir.
Yep, absolutely.
And if you'd like to talk more, I'd be happy.
We'll get your contacts because I have to leave, pick up the kids.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We will continue with Georgina Kaklamani. She's a colleague. She comes from the Department of Project
Grants management.
Grants Management, and she will discuss with us her experience from trying to include gender issues in research proposals in fourth. So let me share the screen for her. And Georgina, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Magda. As Magda said earlier, I'm going to describe a little bit what is happening in fourth concerning the gender dimension that we need and we are obliged to write in research proposals. So, Magda?
Enter. Next page down.
Oh, secretary. Okay, thank you. So, in fact, we are all, at least a little bit, or some of us, we know it better, that the gender dimension must be included in the research proposals now. For the last, I think, 2-3 years, it's more known to the researchers. And the aim of that is that we need to integrate the sex and the gender analysis into the research. So, in fact, this means that all the gender issues that they have to do with the research design and the other dimensions of discrimination, they should be included in the research proposals, even if the proposal does not have to do with gender balance or gender bias, etc. So the inclusion of sex and gender dimension means that all the difference, social, biological, or any other type of differences, they should be included in the research and teaching. And also that the knowledge that is the outcome of this project, proposal, or proposal, they should be transferred to education, and it should be free of gender bias. So some tips that we need to know when we write a proposal, and we need to integrate, Magda, sorry, here. Okay. It went to page down. So to integrate the gender dimension into our proposal, we should set the proper priorities, and we should include it in the entire research and innovation cycle from the beginning to the end. So we should define very clearly the research questions and hypotheses. We should formulate the research question and develop the methods, analyze and report all the results, and evaluate all these results. All of these in terms of incorporating sex and gender analysis. So the tips when we write a proposal like that is to, first of all, to examine if there is a gender dimension in our topic. So in case that our findings or our research experiments affect men and women, boys or girls differently, this is an indicator that we should include the gender dimension. As I said before, the integration of the gender dimension should be included in all stages of the proposal. And we also should incorporate other dimensions or of diversity. Last but not least on this gender dimension in research has to do with the teaching. And we do teach the students without constraints and without stereotypes that these stereotypes, unfortunately, they are unconsciously influence the students. So as Alex, I think, asked before, how in science we have gender dimension. Most of the researchers, they think that all the research, the pure research projects, they are gender neutral, but they are not, right? Kate is smiling. So whenever a researcher that wants to write a proposal in science, and automatically he thinks that this is science, this is gender neutral, he needs to ask a few questions before answering to the gender dimension question in the proposal, like who decides on this research agenda, who decides on the experiments, whose interests and needs are served with this research, and who will be the user of the knowledge afterwards, and also who can benefit from these results of the research. So the way that sex and gender analysis is taken into account in your proposal will be assessed by the evaluators, and I can very confidently say that if the evaluator is a woman, it will be extensively evaluated. So this is something that you all see when you want to submit a proposal, right? It's in the part A of the portal. So you write, you tick the yes in the gender equality plan, and in the yellow phrase down in the page, you see integration of the gender dimension into research and teaching content. This is a part that you need to write as well in your proposal. So when people want to prepare, when researchers in fourth want to write a proposal, they most commonly call me and say, what's the gender dimension? So what is that? It's the first time I see it. And do I have to write this or I can skip it? Of course, you have to write it. And how big it should be? So this is a question I cannot answer because it depends, of course, on the topic of your proposal. And I don't have any gender dimension. It's neutral, gender neutral, my proposal. Do I have to write something? Another question is how deep I need to go. For example, I have gender dimension issues in my proposal. How much I need to analyze it? And another question that I very frequently receive is, can you write it for me? So no, I can't write it for you, except if I have all the proposal, right? And I write the proposal. So so far we've written and answered questions like concerning the gender dimension for more than 40 researchers and proposals. And the main calls that we receive these questions are about doctoral networks, Marie Curie, individual fellowships, EIC, Pathfinders that we know they have this question in there, research and innovation actions and twinning proposals. So some examples of what people want to write or what I've seen in this proposal. So when the page of the gender dimension comes and the title is gender dimension issues, many researchers, they do write gender dimension are not relevant for this research project. So we're trying to develop a little bit there because you cannot state with just one sentence that it's not relevant. It's like saying, I don't care. I don't want to write anything, right? Other researchers, they do write the gender dimension in the research and innovation context of the project has been considered. So I'm not completely ignorant of that. And will be addressed at each stage. This is really vague. I mean, this is not specific. This is just to cover the bullet point, right? To say that they wrote something. In other projects, I have seen, and we have developed some paragraphs on that, but they say we don't see from the beginning any risk. We're not aware of any risk so far. We know it benefits the whole society, and they do explain exactly the reasons why this is gender neutral. So they say 50% men, 50% women, they all benefit from all the results. Another answer that we can give in a proposal about the gender dimension is that the gender dimension has been considered and will be addressed, although so far we know nothing about the gender dimension on this topic. We will test and report the differences. So we do the study, we see if there is a gender dimension on that, and if it will, we will take it into account and we will work on that. So other examples, especially from the Institute of Biology, we have cases of diseases. So in these cases, the gender dimension comes to the population that can be or is affected by the disease. And for example, there are some diseases like Alzheimer's that they do affect mostly women. So they do take into account on that, and they do write why the disease is affected more women, and why and how they will contribute to the sex of the people who are influenced from the disease. Exactly the same comes for the production of medicine. So apart from these, the diversity aspects, because we only write in the proposals that it has to do with the sex, male, female, but it doesn't work only with the sex. It has to do with the ethnicity and the socioeconomic status of people and all the other socio-demographic factors. And the last one has to do with the animal study, where people did not want to use that at the beginning. This reminds me of my postdoctoral studies when I was in UK, where I had to use rats and take some cells from the rats. So the first week I had to do the experiments. I asked my advisor there how old the rat should be, what's the weight of the rat, which race of the rat, right? Because I had to go to the animal house and get one. And at the end I asked him, what rat should I get, male or female? And he answered, I'm not sexist. So the whole room was laughing, and at the time I thought it was just a joke, but thinking of this now, I think it was really naive and unprofessional what he said, because studies that I'm reading now about the specific rats and specific cells, they do have a diversity according to the gender. Oh, sorry. Now we are trying to set the texts that we need to write in the proposals, and in fact we are trying to inform people how important it is to write the gender dimension, and don't just keep it with just a sentence that my research is not related to gender dimension. So any of the researchers in fourth that need help on that, we can support this part of the proposal and define what the gender dimensions in research mean. And I say that because the definition is needed, since most of the researchers, they think that the gender dimension is the gender balance. They confuse it, and they think that if I write the gender balance, that I have 50% women in my group, this covers this gender dimension thing, but this is another bullet. It's not the same. I just want to add a comment on previous discussions influenced from a meeting we had with the Gender Equality Committee in Athens on Friday. I came back, I was at the airport, and as always, I bought something for my daughter, who is 3.5 years old. And with all the things I bought for her, I saw a small magnet that wrote on the top, "Girls Power." So I gave her the magnet, you know, the small magnet we put on the fridge. And she said, "Mom, what's on this? What's right here?" And I said, "It says about girl power." And automatically she said, "Did you not find a magnet with boys power?" And I said, "No, I didn't. Boys do not have power." Yes, they do have power. All people have power. And I influenced from all these meetings and discussions we had on Friday with the Gender Equality Committee, I thought that all the little kids, they do not have the discrimination in mind. They don't see men and women. And all this comes from their education. So this is, as Alex, I think, mentioned it before, this is what should change. So thanks so much. Any questions are welcome, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Georgina, very much. I would like to ask to add a comment here that in a small project I ran, we had a questionnaire in students of primary school and high school, and it was evident that kids do not have the gender bias embedded. But it comes this short
We poison them with this.
That needs analysis, of course. Yes, we can claim that it is an educational process, this bias. So thank you very much. We're a bit running a bit late because of the delays. So if there is any question or yes. Yes, Nikolaos.
Okay, I understand. Hello, my name is Nikolaos Patalakis. I'm from the HCI lab of the Institute of Computer Science. I understand that a lot of people underestimate the gender dimensions in the research by saying that my research does not have a gender dimension. But from my experience, I have seen that if you practice on trying to identify these gender dimensions, you will always find gender dimensions in your research. But my question regards that there are things that we as researchers tend to write in a proposal in order to say that our proposal is okay in terms of gender dimension and balance. But there are also practical things that we should consider. For example, when executing a research project, there is, for example, the fact that in fourth we are doing it using contracts. So what happens if a person has parental obligations during the contract? What is happening is that, of course, you try to give the possibility to this person to proceed with his parental obligations without having to interrupt his contract. But at the same time, a gap is created in your project, which needs to be filled with another contract. In this case, and taking into account that we have a specific budget for a project, this leads to a budget overhead of the entire project. And what I'm trying to say is that by having this policy, we by default we are discriminating women, because in Greece we don't have the culture of giving parental privileges to men. We are discriminating women because of the fact.
Βάλεις λίγο να πιει. Η τσάπα το φέρατε κάτω.
And I would say that an organization that has a gender policy could, for example, cover these expenses from the total budget of force instead of having to do it internally. And another thing that we should cover in terms of discrimination is also the fact that in research we might sometimes have people with disabilities affected by our research or participating into our research. How do we try to address, how do we address as for these requirements that are posed by such people participating or be affected by our research? Thank you.
Okay, the question goes to me, I think. Yes. Okay, so thank you for your question. I understand this is a more general question having to do with the gender balance in force. So first, I can say that the most suitable person to answer this question is Maria Klapa, who is the president of the Gender Equality Committee. But from my side, I can say that we already have done this questionnaire, and we are preparing the new gender equality plan for force. And we do include some new policies in there. And also, as an institute, we recently got the Seal of Excellence, which is the logo from the Euraccess, where we have an action plan and the obligation to solve these issues in force. So to my view, all these very serious issues have been taken into account, and in the near future they will be solved. However, I would like to hear what Maria wants to say on that, because she's more related to the subject.
Indeed, even though at the moment this is not directly the content of the objective of this seminar, so I will just say that we are updating the gender equality plan for fourth based on this data that we have collected and on the questionnaire. We are going to have in the fall a presentation also of this data, and have the action plan based on the results in various of these aspects. Also, we want to say that in collaboration with the other research centers and and also the universities, the network of the universities, GECs, we have had all these the work committees, subcommittees that we have formed, and we are collaborating in preparing standardized indicators for all the research centers, and also in addressing these issues collectively around the research centers in Greece. So I will stop here to give the comments, the floor to Magda and Thanasis to talk about their experience in these workshops. We are also going, as we said, to have a workshop in November about these issues, and we are asking everybody to send to the GEC any problems, and contact us, contact the members of your institute, and also participate, collaborate with us in solving these issues, in first determining and solving these issues inside forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Maria. I would like to welcome also to our group here, Professor Maria Stratigaki, who runs the Gendering project that we followed the workshop, and this meeting is a result of all this effort. I would like also to apologize because we lose some of our members of the panel because they have to run to take the kids from the out school, you know, after school activities, summer school activities. And I don't know, I would like to ask Professor Maria Stratigaki if she, because we are a bit late, if she would like to take the floor before me, Thanasis and myself, in case her time is very valued. And
my time is okay. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I don't have any problem of time. Please go as the agenda, and I will be very brief.
Okay.
I will be very brief. I don't have a presentation to make, so I will be very brief.
We will be brief, very
Okay.
brief also.
Right.
So let me share my screen. Okay. Here I am. Okay. Sorry, let me share again my screen. I think this was shared. Okay, fantastic. So I think now everything is all right. Yes, okay. So I'm Magdalini Hadjaki, Magda Hadjaki. I come from ICS 4th. I'm a computer scientist and work for the Systems and Networks department of my institute. And I will discuss a little bit of my experience in this following this gendering workshop. I followed the workshop on the 8th and 9th of May in Thessaloniki. It was hosted by the Faculty of Education in a very beautiful building, the Tower building of the Faculty of Education, and it was hosted by Professor Dimitra Kogidou. We thank her for her, you know, philoxenia in that beautiful building, nice meeting rooms, and the workshop I followed 2 sessions. The first session in the afternoon of the 8th of May, it was, the subject was social inclusion, participation and democracy, and it had relevance, it was relevant with Cluster 2 and Cluster 3 of Horizon Europe. On the 9th of May in the morning, I followed the workshop for technology, industrial production and work, which was covering the Cluster 4 digital industry and space of Horizon Europe. It was both seminars, both sessions were 3.5 hours long. It was very fruitful, and I think the important point there was that it was an interdisciplinary group of people that made the points of view, there were different and diverted points of view on the same subject, and that created a lot of ideas. Also, the instructors were the instruction from the leaders, from the instructors of the workshop was very discreet. So it was giving a very big, a lot of degrees of freedom in the way of expressing the ideas. So these were, I think, the key points of the workshop that created a very fruitful and interesting result. It was a great experience. The workshop process, I mean, how the workshop developed, it was 30 minutes. The first session was 30 minutes. It was introduction and guidelines by the instructors, what we're here to do. and each one of us had to make a presentation of himself and of his interests. Then after we introduced ourselves, we split in groups upon our preference, basically, and our a common interests. So we split in groups, and we had a session, approximately 30 minutes. It was in the group, posing each one of us a kind of question, research question on his own subject, fields, interests that could include gender as an issue. We collected these questions, and then in a plenary presentation, each group presented the list of questions and the elaboration that has already been done during the first group gathering. Then we had a break, we had a coffee. Then at the fourth session, at around 45 minutes, each group gathered again and tried from those questions to prepare and to create a thesis, a project proposal, a thesis for the group that would, this thesis would include gender issues in its subject. After that, we came back to a plenary where we presented our projects. Okay, this was the exercise. At the end, there was a wrap-up with video presentations from the instructors. I have an example here. Due to lack of time, I will not present it, but you can find it on the YouTube as an example. Through this process, the instructors were giving hints and incentives in order to accomplish the goals of the workshop. So in the first session, social inclusion, participation, and democracy, the group, we were from the computer science, social geography, scientists, architecture, economics of rural areas, and project management. This was the synthesis of the people, the members. And we developed some questions. Here are some examples of the questions that we put on the table. I will not get into detail at this point due to lack of time. Then we presented it to the plenary, and we decided that we organized a project proposal. The project proposal, you will see it in the fifth bullet point. The idea was to set up an interdisciplinary active research project that would study the impact of gender inclusion within specific contexts, because we decided that context matters, and we would work in 3 axes: the social level, which means the welfare, the economics, and the community participation; the spatial level, the landscape, the surroundings, as well as the digital level. So the case study that we had from Vangelis and Catherine suits very well to this, this result of this workshop independently. And I will also, my last slide, will see a second conclusion that is almost the same with your work. So it's really fantastic that we realize that, you know, this common sense. The second group, it was a group of educators, educators and physical educators. And the research question that they posed was, how do parents choose their children's after-school activities, and if there is any gender, any influence of gender regarding this choice. I mean, this is the opposite thing. Does the gender of the parent influences his decision on where to send the kid for an activity? And the third group at this workshop was a group of social workers. So there, the questions that were posed concerned the stereotypes, the gender stereotypes related to the work place, the jobs, the stereotypes about the women leadership, women and violence, women and hypermasculinity, and the research questions posed there was how the factor of gender influences the selection of work orientation in Greece. And the second research question was how the position or the ranking influences the gender in the workplace. And that was the end of the first day. We were something like 10 participants in this workshop. The next day, it was the next morning, we had the technology in industrial production and work. There we were very few. The people that had declared that would participate in the workshop, it was just below 20 people, and we were just 2 or 3 at present. So this also gives it gives it proves that people in technology do not care about gender issues at all. It's not of their business. But we worked a little bit on that. The participants, the background were ICT, chemical engineering, ICT and social processes automation, and agricultural engineering. We identified through the workshop, the main process, that the gender gap, we have a gender gap in data during the analysis requirements phase due to the hypothesis that math models and technology is neutral. Okay? So the first question we posed was, how could we include gender issues in the design and the development phase of a technology, of the production of an artifact, either digital or mechanical or whatever. We identified that it is easier to include gender issues in the usage of the technology or in the social impact of the technology. But it is very difficult, quite difficult, to include gender issues in the design process in the design and development process of developing an artifact or a new technology. The second research question we posed was, how do we prove gender discrimination caused by AI systems? This was a comment by a dear lady. She is a lawyer and she works on ICT and social processes automation And this is her main research interest. Through the process of the workshop, we decided to set up a proposal in order to develop a system design and development approach for building artifacts enriched with gender sensitive parameters. And how we do that, we identified through our meeting there that there is, we called it the split it into small pieces problem. This means that we have a social process, that it is automated, for example, that it is not neutral, and it is gender biased and gender influenced. But these social processes, these automated social processes are built up of small technological modules assumed as neutral and as gender unbiased, okay? So we decided that we have to replace the modular approach design with a systems design approach that will be parameterized with gender sensitive parameters, qualitative as well as quantitative. So as you see, we developed a process that you followed in your and design and develop in concentric circles. What this means? This means that at each phase, the system is enriched. I mean, it's not only the artifact that we develop, but we develop a system. The system consists of the social and physical environment plus the artifact. Okay, so as you develop the whole story, you expand this system like the universe. Okay, so you include more parameters, gender or whatever parameters, as well as develop either the software or the robot or the mechanical as well as the digital part of the artifact. And all this is the new system that you will evaluate and add extra information. Okay, so this is clear. So these were our results through this workshop. I found it really, really very interesting. And it gave me new ways of thinking as a member of the computer science department in fourth, for potential collaborations for projects, as well as a member of the GEC committee in order to find ways to help our research community to enrich the research with gender dimension. Thank you very much. Any questions are very welcome. Excuses, get the children.
Sure.
Okay, so
I'm just happy that you enjoyed the workshop so much. It makes me very happy to hear.
Thank you, Trina. So now we move to the last presentation. It is of my colleague Thanasis Mariolakis, who followed the workshop as well, but he followed the workshop for health
And the environment.
Health and environment sessions. So let me bring his presentation online. Okay, so we go to slideshow. Okay. No? It is this one. Okay. Here.
Okay, thank you, Magda, for organizing this event. And I would like to thank also Linda, Trine, and Maria Stratigaki for the workshop that we attended. My name is Athanasios Margiolakis, and I work for the Grant Management and Support Office here at Ford. So the days that I attended the workshop was 11th and 12th of May, and happened in Athens at the Impact Hub at CV. So as you see, the space was organized by having tables. Around those tables were 5 to 6 people each that made a group, and all the discussions happen in this group usually, and after the presentation was shared with everyone else. So the first session that I attended was the health, and this is regarding the Horizon Europe clusters. It covers the health cluster. So I'm going to give some examples of the talks we had with the group and what we presented at the end. So one point that was mentioned was, does the sex of cells affect the pharmacological efficacy of the treatment in cardiovascular disease? So this was mentioned before by Trine, and it actually, the gender, the sex does affect the efficacy of the treatment depending the gender. Another point was made that if the gender plays an important factor to explain the differences in the infectious diseases in HIV and HCV, and how does the gender is getting affected by the infection or the development into worse symptoms. Another point that was presented was that there are some gender differences with regard to mental health in some working environments. For example, some care workers who take care of elderly people, or some at some hospitals, for example. And some research has been showing that women are more likely to develop mental health problems overall, with higher frequency of depression and anxiety as well. So I will not state all the points that were made, but these three are making some good points regarding the health session. So let's move to the next day. It was the environment and climate session, and this covers in the Horizon Europe clusters number 5 and number 6. So one point that was made, it was how the aerosols affect the ecosystem diversification. And as an example, it was given that there are some fishes which are born hermaphrodites, and in early age, they start to develop their gender, their sex, and that the pollution can affect this. So depending on the pollution, many of the fishes that were born lately can become male or female. A second point is that regarding the energy subjects can be affected by the gender. For example, when you start to develop a design, an architecture that designs a new building, how do they use the heat conditions in the building? Because the women require higher temperatures than men. And another point is that when you buy a car, how do you design this car, or how do you market this car? And depending on the gender, it can be shown that it can affect based on the design can affect how the gender will choose this car. One more point is that designing spaces and items. So in general, some items can be used easier from women than men, and spaces as well. A third point that was presented was that how the gender dimension can affect the outcome of natural disaster. And as an example, it was given that in the late Turkish earthquake this year, the majority of the victims were women. So some research can be made in order to justify this statistic, and how can we prevent future disasters to affect the genders in general. As a final slide, I would like to state my personal experience from the Gender In. Personally, didn't have any prior knowledge to the gender dimension besides watching the webinars that we were required before attending this workshop. So I didn't have any idea, but the interaction with the interdisciplinary people there and the pace that we use exchanging information, asking questions, and having quite plenty of time to discuss about whatever question we had, it really helped. And in the end, by presenting all these points, we received great feedback and guidance from the instructors as well as the participants on all the theses that were presented. And I would like to thank you all for attending.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Any questions? People, let me check. No, I don't see any question. I think I don't miss any. Okay, so thank you very much. Let us give the floor to Professor Maria Stratigaki. He comes from the Pantheon Panepistimion. She is the chair of the Greek Association of Academic Women, GEC-aD, and she is the coordinator of the Gender In project that organized all the workshops that we discussed the last few minutes. And it is the incentive to do this discussion today. Ms. Maria Stratigaki.
Thank you very much. I will be very, very brief, 3 minutes, because it's late. I would like to thank for the invitation, but also most of it. I want to thank Mrs. Hadjaki and Mr. Mariolakis for the nice presentation of the workshop, of Gender In workshops, live workshops, that it was really very good, because for me it was great to hear that we had such an impact with this small project we designed with GEC-aD, with the small association of university women, in collaboration, of course, with the instructors, as you said, the two ladies from Kilden, from Norway. One is Trine and the other one is Linda Rustad. So I'm very happy that we had such a big success, and I really thank the fourth, because you were the only institution who responded so much to our call for this free live workshop. So this means something. It's not by chance that you moved to Thessaloniki and to Athens. So we organized 8 workshops as the ones that they were just described, and we had about 70 people in Athens and Thessaloniki to respond, to take part in this live workshops. You said that before we had the webinars, and then we will have a next step now for October, November. We are going to make a small publication with a short summaries of the issues that we have worked on during the workshops. There are 6 people who write a small briefing note on each of the 6 clusters of Horizon, based on the input of the real implementation of the live workshops. And then we are going to make one-day seminar where we present this, and we are going to invite certainly somebody from the working group from the network of research institutes. chaired by Maria Klapa. So we are going to invite somebody from the research institutes to participate in this one-day seminar. And also we are ready to collaborate with FORTH specifically for having a seminar in Crete in November. And I'm very happy that we can do it in the framework of Gender In. But I would like to say that if your interest in FORTH is so big, you could have a direct collaboration with Kilden, with the institution in Norway, with Trine and Linda, and then you can make another new project directly from FORTH and Kilden without the, let's say, the intervention of LAYIP, that is the current project. The project is funded by the EEA grants and under the bilateral collaboration between Greece and Norwegian organizations. So that's all. We are a small association, but we succeeded with it. Now I realize that we had a big success with these live workshops, and I hope that the latest developments at the European level, 2022, where the gender equality plans are a criteria for eligibility for the Horizon Europe, will really turn things very quick in Greece. Because we were very slow in the past, and now with this incentive of Horizon Europe, I hope that research will be enriched and gender will be well integrated in the research in all in all institutes for research in Greece. Thank you very much, and good continuation of your work on that.
Thank you very much, Maria, for your intervention. Additionally, I would like to thank my director, Professor Dimitris Plexousakis, that he supported our trip to Thessaloniki, my trip to Thessaloniki, to participate to this workshop, and he also supported this event. He was here with us until a few minutes ago, and this means that Institute of Computer Science has a positive, attitude on this subject. It is also a big question in the area of STEM. It is evident that gender issues are a question for STEM sciences. So here we are. Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. Maria Klapa, would you like to make a comment, or Trine, a final comment, so we close this? Most colleagues were online, so even though we tried to create a hybrid event to have people here on site, probably it's the heat. Today we have a very hot day in Crete, so nobody went out from their air condition, from their office. So we have all our colleagues online.
I just want to say thank you, and I'm very impressed that you have there are so many people who participated and who are interested. It's very promising for your research institute. So I really look forward to come and visit you in November to organize workshops. It was it's a very good to listen to what you have you and your colleague got from the workshops, because that was something of the intention, that is to start the conversation to the research, not to dictate how to do it, but it was really creative and interesting what you found out interdisciplinary research questions. So thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you. And as a
Maria?
last comment, I would like to thank, as I said, Magda Hadzaki, but also Thanasis Marioulakis, and for that, and of course, Maria Stratigaki and Trine Korsvik for their contribution actually to this. And I would like to say to the fourth community that since we cannot all participate in all events, this is a thought and a workflow that we will continue, have people participating and then have some events to pass on the experience for that and have more events developed. So this is again, we are looking forward to have you in Crete in November and have this workshop with the community and the researchers of Forth and the other academic institutions, and not only in Crete. Thank you again, and thank you, Magda, for all the coordination and this thinking outside the box for this event. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your kind words. Sorry for some technical issues, but yes, sometimes happen. Okay.
Okay.
So we wrap
Thank you.
up.
Goodbye.
Thank you all. Have a nice afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.